Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Justin. So today I want to do a video about selling your used electronic drums. How to post it, where to post it, how to get the most money, whether or not you should sell the drum set as a whole or individual pieces, sort of issues you might want to avoid running into, all that fun stuff. I also asked for your guys' tips on selling your used electronic drums, which I'll include in this video as well. Okay, so let's start off at the beginning. Before you can even write up a description and post your photos, you're gonna need to choose a website to sell through, whether or not you're selling in person or if you're gonna be selling online. So if you do sell in person, I recommend Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. If you're gonna be selling online, the best two websites are easily ebay.com and reverb.com. There are a few other ones out there like Let Go and other small apps like that you can choose to use. But when I've gone on them, at least in my local location, I've noticed that it's mostly clothing and home goods and power tools, that type of a thing. As far as like Facebook Marketplace versus Craigslist, I'm leaning towards Facebook. Because number one, I can see the real profile photo on Facebook. So I can see what Dave looks like so I can actually recognize him when I'm meeting up. Also, I can just use Facebook Messenger and I can message them to figure out why they're late or all that stuff. And then of course, I can see where they actually live because it's tied to their Facebook profile. I can see more of what's going on. It's not as anonymous as it is over on Craigslist. Let's move ahead and talk about whether or not you want to sell this together or separately. Whenever you have a drum set, if you sell the individual parts of the drum set, over time, you will end up making more money. I'm not the only one to know this. Like, this has been a tried and true thing that has been done specifically by the drum companies. They sell their individual components so high in price that it's always cheaper to buy the complete drum set. And so the side effect is that if you take your drum set apart and sell the cymbals and the module and the snare separately, you'll end up making more money. The problem is this takes a long time. Because you're not finding one buyer, you're finding 10 buyers for each individual component of your drum set. Some parts of your drum set will be in higher demand than other parts. So for example, it might take you weeks to find somebody to get rid of this drum rack that you've got, but you'll immediately find somebody who wants to buy your drum module or your hi-hats because those go right away. So again, it takes longer, but over time you will make more money if you sell the individual pieces of the drum set. And then as far as whether or not I want to sell in person or online, I tend to sell an entire drum set in person if I want to get rid of the entire drum set. I'll do that in person. And the really heavy stuff, I'll mostly just sell locally. So for example, when I was selling my TD17KVX drum rack, I sold that to a guy via Facebook Marketplace, but I sold the module and the pads and everything separately via eBay. And it was mostly because I didn't want to try to cram that drum rack back in its original box and then it's heavy and I didn't want to have to ship it. So that's why I chose to sell that locally versus the module, which I just made more sense to sell that online. And of course, I have to mention that if you sell in person to somebody, you don't have to pay eBay a cut of your sales, and you don't have to give that PayPal commission that certain websites ask for. You don't have to pay for shipping. Like, there are a bunch of different costs that not only are you saving on, but the buyer is saving on as well. Okay, so my next tip is try not to sell anything to someone in another country because it's more expensive than you think it will be as far as shipping goes. Because you're not just paying for your drum to go from here to Canada, you're also paying for the border inspections on both sides. The next tip that I have is that if you're selling online, I highly recommend those flat rate shipping boxes. In the United States at the post office, they have a bunch of different boxes of different shapes and sizes, and whatever you can fit in those boxes, they will ship at a certain flat rate. And generally, it is way cheaper to use the boxes at the post office rather than finding some box that you bought at Walmart or Staples or whatever store that you bought your box from. Because a lot of these carriers, they really like shipping boxes of certain sizes and certain dimensions. So if you use their boxes, you're playing on their playground and they give you a lower price in shipping. That's just been my personal experience. I know that certain websites have struck deals with certain shipping carriers. So maybe if you ship via reverb.com, you can get shipping labels printed out lower at UPS versus the USPS or FedEx. It depends on the website. So basically what I'm trying to say here is use all the tricks to get lower shipping rates. That way you can charge less for the drums, all right? And that way the drums get sold quicker. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is you need to emotionally detach from this drum set. You need to take the mentality that you are letting go. This is no longer your drum set, and it's about to find a nice new home that will appreciate it more than you. That's the mentality you have to take. I know there's lots of drummers out there that are really attached to their drums because of the way they write their descriptions. This is their baby. But if you're selling it, you're selling it. The reason why I even bring this up is that people will overprice their drums and never sell them. There are people that have been trying to sell their drums for months, and they claim that they're being so fair and it's such a good deal, but they know it's not a good deal because no one's buying it. The drums are only worth what people are willing to pay for, and some people have a hard time adjusting into what people will pay for their gear. So take emotion out of it. If you're trying to sell it, then sell it. So how do you find out what your drum set's actually worth so you can price it accordingly? What you want to do is go on ebay.com, type in the name of your drum set, and then sort by completed listings. And you'll see a list of drums that are identical to yours and what people actually paid real money for. Then you can average out the last 10 prices of the last 10 drum sets that are just like yours that have sold, and that is what the drum set is currently worth on today's market. Now you can do whatever you want with that information. You can slightly overprice it, and that way you can slowly knock down the price a notch or two every week or so and try to get the maximum price that people will pay for it. Or you can slightly underprice it and then it will sell faster, whatever kind of mentality you want to go into this with. Okay, so I've given you a bunch of random tips, but now let's jump into like a step-by-step way of approaching listing your drums so that the most people will want to look at it and the most people will consider buying it. So step number one is go find your drum set wherever it is in the basement, in that cardboard box covered in dust, and take it out and actually test it. Do not trust your memory. A lot of times you'll have an old piece of gear and you'll forget that, 5 years ago, last time that you played it, one of the zones wasn't working quite right. You need to test the gear and find out what condition it's in. Because if you're not honest in the listing, it will come back to bite you. So be completely honest and explain in painful detail exactly how good or bad of a condition that it's in. People care about honesty. They want to be able to trust you, and they can figure out if you're just, pretending it's in better condition than it is by the way that you write your description. The next thing is you want to clean off this drum set. Sometimes the drums have been sitting around for a while, or even if you actively play them, for some reason dust clings to drums. Like it's amazing how much dust can accumulate on even an actively played drum set. So take a damp cloth and just wipe down all the different parts of your drum set so it looks clean. The next step is to make sure that you have a good location to take your photos. This is key because some people have a dimly lit basement and they just leave the drum set in a cardboard box and take a couple of photos. Or even worse, they'll use the stock image. They'll say, this is what the drum set looks like. It's not assembled, so I didn't want to give you the real photos. No, nobody will trust you. No one will buy this drum set if you have the stock image. All right, some people might, but you'll get way less potential buyers if you use the stock image that Roland or Lisa's presented. Take photos of your real drum set. You need to make sure there's nothing else in the frame. All right, you want to make sure that this drum set is the only thing people are looking at. Go find an empty wall in your house somewhere and set the drum set up. And make sure it's set up in a way that it looks like somebody has recently played it. Some people are very lazy about this. They won't even correctly position the pads to be the way they're supposed to. And they'll be all crooked and everything. And no one wants to buy your drum set if it looks like an idiot has been playing it recently. You want to make sure that you have everything correctly set up. And if you live in a really cramped area and you don't have any clear walls or any sort of way to set up a drum set without a lot of clutter being everywhere, one thing that I've found that works really well is people take a bunch of photos of their drum set in the driveway in front of their house. You just need to make sure that there's a clear line of sight. Also, blast the drum set with light. This next step is very, very important. Take a lot of photos of this drum set. There's a key reason for this. Let's say that you are trying to sell your Alesis Strike Pro, and there's another guy in your same city who's also trying to sell his Alesis Strike Pro. And for the sake of this argument, let's say both of the drum sets are in equal condition, but he's only taken 2 photos. They can be nice photos, but he's only got 2 photos. How long am I going to be scrolling over that listing? I'll look at it, swipe over to the next photo, read what he says. He wrote 1 sentence describing the state of the drum set, and I'm done. I've already seen the profile. Meanwhile, I go and look at your profile. I have to swipe between 20 photos and I see every single cymbal, every angle of the drum set I can possibly imagine. I have no more questions about the state of your drum set. And then I read your description. Instead of writing 1 sentence, you wrote an entire paragraph or 2 describing how long you've owned it, what you've used it for. I end up spending more seconds looking at your post than your competition. So that's why you want to have a lot more photos, and that's why you want to write a longer description. And then from there, the last thing is that you're just going to have to decide what the pricing is going to be. If you underprice it, it will go faster. If you overprice it, it will take longer, but you'll make more money in the long run. One last thing I want to mention is that you've messed up if you sell the drum set within an hour of posting. This has happened to me, not with drums, but with some other video game stuff. I sold something within 1 hour of posting it on Facebook. And then I was like, oh crap, I must have not priced this high enough. I started getting more messages from other people. Hey, is it still available? Is it still available? I had a bunch of other offers and I had to go with the first guy. But I realized that I made a boneheaded mistake where I underpriced it. And it's kind of too late by then because you've already agreed to sell to somebody. Don't go too low on the pricing unless you absolutely need that drum set gone within an hour. But of course, don't be too emotionally attached to it. Be willing to go down in price, because I've seen so many guys list their drums and they just are trying to sell it for months. It's been on the app for months and months. We've all seen it, and it's kind of sad. And that has been my 2 cents on selling used electronic drums. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in a few.